Hey guys, Jared here. Don't forget that as we go through this review, that we would absolutely love to have you as a new subscriber to our channel. And remember, once you join the fanboys, you're part of the family. So we thank you so much for all those that have already subscribed, and we welcome any and all new subscribers. We'd love to have your help, and we need your help. On to the review. Greetings, fanboys and fangirls. Jared here with another video from Fanboys Forever. And today we're going to be taking a look at the Costco exclusive Batmobile and Tactical Batman set. Now, this is a 12-inch scaled set, and of course it touts on the packaging that it fits a 12-inch scaled figure. But the truth is that everybody pretty much knows that this Batmobile is actually perfect for our 6 and 7-inch Batman figures. Now, we're going to be doing a lot of different things in this review. We're going to be having a look at other Batmobiles in comparison to this one. We're also going to be trying out many different scales of Batman figures to see which one is the most appropriate. And so I'm really excited to have a look. We may even start talking about some customizing possibilities for this thing. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. As for packaging, it is very similar to what we've seen from the rest of the Spin Master line, and it's very similar to what we saw from Mattel's last iteration of the Batman line. And once again, I've talked about this before, that there seems to be a lot of kinship here in the packaging design, so it's kind of funny. I do think there's some sort of relationship there. I'm not really sure what. On the side, we also have some cool Batman artwork. I really like the animated style that Spin Master has on their packaging. And on the back, we get some neat artwork of Batman and the Batmobile. And we have the Creature Chaos logo, which puts this squarely within the same line as all the other products. And on the top, we have the DC logo with another UPC code. It is interesting to note that collectors were pretty concerned for a while that this particular Batmobile was going to be some sort of European exclusive, because it had been around for actually many months in European territories. But it does appear that the reason it was being held back is because they were giving it some Costco exclusivity. So you never know, we may eventually see this released on its own, but for now, this is the only way to get it. All right, let's have a look at the actual Batmobile. So before going any further, it's probably worth noting that Mattel had a set that was incredibly similar to this for last year at Costco that I saw while I was there. And it was a terrific value then, but I think this might be even more of a great value. This is just 20 bucks. And with it, you get a full-size Batmobile and one of those 12-inch figures. So I think it's actually a pretty terrific bargain. But once again, it's funny how there's those really odd similarities to exactly what Mattel had done before. It really makes me think there's a little bit more going on with the transition than we initially thought. So it's probably painfully obvious that I'm having a hard time fitting this on my regular review station, but I'll just do the best I can. That's why I'm starting the review with a look at the very front of the Batmobile, so that we can see that, because that's going to be the thing that I probably struggle getting the most. You can see the front just has the wheels exposed. There's some wheel wells right there. There's the giant bat head, which is something that I really love from the old classic Batmobiles and something that I wish the movies would put in. It's always been one of my favorite design aspects of many of those old Batmobiles. From the top, we have all this great detail on the side, and the side is where it will fit a lot better. So that's going to be how we mostly look at it for this part. You can see that we have the Bat logo on the wheels. We have some little wheel well details in there. There's some ridges right there, which are nice. They're made out of a different plastic that's like plugged in. It's kind of more of a slick plastic, almost a glittery sort of effect. There's some vents over there on the side. There's the classic fins, like the Batman 89 Batmobile. And then we have these like pipes that are coming out of the sides. So I really think that's cool. All sorts of bolts and things. And the head is actually raised quite a bit on the front there, so I really like the bolts. I really like how the canopy suggests 2 seats in there, which is what I always like best with Batmobiles. And I love that orange kind of transparent sort of plastic that they have there. Looks really great, and it provides the necessary contrast with the black. I have it kind of open, so you can just kind of push it back down right there, and you can see how it's really supposed to look. On the side, the exact same thing as the other. And on the back, we have a turbine that looks really almost exactly like the Batman 89 turbine. So that's really cool. Very reflective plastic right there. There's no tail lights or obvious spots for tail lights, so that's kind of one thing that might be a little weird. I suppose this area, much like the Batman the Animated Series Batmobile, I suppose this could be like where triangular tail lights are supposed to be, but maybe it didn't get painted. The wheels have some interesting detail because they actually go to the trouble of having almost like bat wing patterns on them. So I think that's really cool. And then on the bottom of the Batmobile, you kind of have this faux engine detail with some copyright information. And I always think that this is cool when companies will go the extra mile to put something down here. This isn't a part that most people will ever see, but I do think it's nice when there's a suggestion, at least, of some detail. This, in a lot of ways, stands up to a lot of the more collector-aimed stuff, just in sculpt alone. The last part of the sculpt that's worth talking about is the inside. And I know that this is supposed to be a cockpit, but it almost functions as more of a bed, because practically it has almost what looks like a pillow. Batman really has that seat recline because you pretty much would lay down the figure in there. But you know what? This is actually kind of great, because when a Batmobile does this, this means that you have a wide array of scales that you can fit in, because most of them can lay down and fit in there. And there in the front, you can see it's totally hollow to accommodate the Batman figure that you put in. So there's no steering wheel or anything like that. You would have to build that out if you wanted something like that. So to me, it's not really much of a big deal when there isn't anything going on in there. I like to be able to fit a figure inside, and that's pretty much the end of it for the interior. And I think the seat is nicely sculpted and detailed. Or bed, as it were. I'm not going to spend long at all talking about the figure. This is the figure you get. I don't really collect these. I think they're pretty good for what they are. The sculpting is certainly pretty nice on there. I really like what they've done. It's certainly not like just a large version of what they do with the 3 3/4 figures. It looks pretty different in terms of the detail. There's the chest logo and the belt. And everything's very nicely articulated. You know the deal with these. Lots of rotation. There's even rotation at the bicep. There's even wrist rotation. And the legs, you can do the splits. You can go out just about as far as you want to. Single joints, but they're pretty deep. Nothing at the ankles. No rotation at the knees, but nothing at the waist. And the head can turn, and it can actually look down a pretty good ways. The cape is that vinyl-y kind of stuff. It's not as bad as some I've seen, but it's not as good either as others I've seen. Here's the detail in the back. That's it. I'll just show you really quick that the figure can fit in here. The truth is that 90% of adult collectors, which is kind of what these reviews are aimed at, we're not getting it to put this Batman in it. But you know what? We're just going to see if he can really go in there. And I suppose the trick is that he pretty much, his legs take up like the entire car in there. And it's funny because it's almost like Batman's riding in a go-kart version of the Batmobile. And like I said earlier, Batman is pretty much taking a nap in here. But it doesn't look half bad when you look at it like that. But it's just hilarious to think his legs are all the way down through. And yes, cockpit can close and lock, and he's in there. Just don't look through the windshield too closely, I suppose. Batman might be pulled over for not setting up while he drives. But that's the thing you can do. If you have a kid in your life that would really enjoy this, I suggest you just give this figure to him. I think these are great. They're certainly great for the kids that they're intended for, but it's definitely not something I collect. So let's get on to the fun stuff with this Batmobile. Let's start by seeing how he handles one of the 3 3/4 figures. And this is the funny comparison. You can see right here pretty clearly, this is not intended for 3 3/4 figures. This is perhaps the one scale that I would say that you can't even attempt. Batman is ridiculously undersized for this Batmobile, and if you were to put him in here, he would just kind of fall through the Batmobile and just come crashing through the front of it. So it's not going to work with 3 3/4 figures. Sorry. But that's okay, because there's plenty of 3 3/4 Batmobile options, so that's not even really a problem. Let's use one of my Batman Missions figures. We're just going to use the tried and true one that I always use in my reviews. This is just the last one they did for that Walmart set that had him and the Joker with the vehicles. And I gotta say, it looks pretty decent, because this guy is in the 6-inch scale, and I actually think that looks pretty nice. I mean, he looks just about right standing beside of it. You know, you can take him and put him in there, and I have a feeling it'll work out really well, because these guys you shouldn't actually even have to lay down. The 6-inch scaled figure, look at that. Looks great. Kind of reminds me of how maybe a Superpowers Batman might look. Take the cockpit down, and I think it might have knocked him over once I put it down. Yeah, it knocks him over just slightly, but really it looks pretty nice. And if we really want to keep things interesting, let's bring in another Lions Robin to see if he can sit right beside of him. Let's go with the animated series Robin from the now defunct DC Direct. Sad, sad, sad. They're gone. All right, let's get him in there. They're both 6-inch scaled figures. And Robin, you have to do some weird things because I don't have the version with the soft goods cape that they did specifically to fit in their Batmobile. But, you know, it works. You can put down the hood and it kind of, you'll notice that the hood kind of adjusts the figures and kind of pushes them in as they need to be so that it'll fit. But it works pretty well. So, yeah, you can actually, if you want to, 2 6-inch scaled figures can go in there, which might be a first since the original Mattel 6-inch Batmobile. Next, we'll just see how a Batman the Animated Series Batman looks with the Batmobile. And I actually think that looks quite nice. I know, like I said, that it's not the actual thing or anything like that, but I think that scale-wise, you could do a lot worse than this. Very nice. Let's do a really oddball comparison. We will go with the old DC Direct Justice Alex Ross Batman, which in its day was probably the best Batman figure that I really owned at its time. Of course, it's, you know, we've had a lot happen since then, but it's still a really good figure. Because it's in 7-inch scale, it's a little big for this, just slightly, but it doesn't look too bad. And of course, if you wanted to, he does have the big rubber cape, but it doesn't matter because you can literally lay him down, maybe put him up just a little bit, and he's gonna fit just fine. All right, so here is our Power Attack Batman in front of the Batmobile. Now this was a 6-inch scaled line, and yes, indeed, if you've been with us long enough to wonder if this is the exact same one that we had on the channel back in 2012, yes it is. This is the same figure, and here he is. He's still in good shape too. They built those things to last, and I really think the scale is superb with this. I mean, it looks absolutely terrific. The only real difference between the Batmobiles back then for Power Attack and this one is that there's so much more of a serious styling going on with this, and I think that that's why this is so much more attractive for adult collectors. So let's do the cockpit test, and let's just see. Of course, you can fit practically any size Batman figure you own in this. So he can, you can take him, you can try to set him up a little bit. He looks really good that way. Then this can go down, and of course you can clamp it shut, no problem. So most of these can even set up a little bit, especially in that 6-inch scale. Moving out of the 6-inch scale for a second, let's have just a quick look at how a McFarlane Batman would look. I only have one McFarlane Batman so far. This would be the Arkham Asylum Batman figure, which I think is their best Batman they've done. And as long as you get one with good eye paint. And to my eye, this looks fine. I do think he's a little big for it, just standing beside of it. However, you can play with perspective a little, and just by doing that, the Batmobile instantly looks much more massive, and he looks pretty good with it that way, so you can play with perspective in your display. I don't think it's by much that he's a little big for it, but it just, maybe he's just slightly big looking. However, once you put him in, it's really quite perfect. That kind of alleviates any of those scale issues, and just so that we can get a better look at him in there, you can see that it really looks good. Particularly, you can put this down and it even clamps in, no problem. You can see he's still in the exact position we left him in, no damage to the ears. So yeah, talk about versatile. It's like they've chosen the perfect scale. That would be maybe just a little big with a 5-inch figure, maybe a little small with a 7-inch figure, but it's kind of in that sweet spot. Let's continue to keep things interesting and unexpected. We are going to go with, I think, one of the best Batman figures ever made. Very hard to get these days. It is the Batman Incorporated Batman figure from DC Direct. And I have to say that the scale here is fantastic. I think that it's just about right. He might be ever so slightly large in front of it, but it's really not that much of a deal breaker. I think you can really make this scale work. And this is one of my favorite Batman series of all time. If you've not read Batman Incorporated, get on it because you will absolutely love it. So we'll just take him, and he does have a pretty limited articulation, as DC Direct, rest in peace, as they sort of had back then. But if you look, he looks really good in there. We'll just bring down the lid, and of course it snaps into place, no problem. So that is one of my more choice, I think, figures that I'm going to use with this Batmobile. Absolutely love it. So I know that a big question that a lot of people are going to have about this Batmobile is how will it look with my Mezco Batman figures, because the truth is they canceled out their Batmobile, or at least it seems like it's canceled for now anyway, and so it's kind of left a big hole in the Batman collection for Mezco collectors. And let's have a look. The answer is yes, absolutely yes. you can see that this looks absolutely terrific. The scale is just about perfect for this. You can actually take this, and this is the Sovereign Knight MDX. It was called the Onyx version. We'll just put them in there. You can see that, you know, I put them back just a little bit, and that's because I'm using the long ears version of the head. And you could even, you know, you could set them up a little bit if you wanted to make them look a little more dignified in there. And like we could put the top down, and it clicks right into place. The scale here just really sells this thing. For $20, you can go and get this at Costco, and it is literally, I mean, it's cheaper than that when you factor in the other figure. And that, for a great Mezco scale Batmobile, I mean, it looks great. It really does. I just wanted to show it to you from the front as well. You can see that that great yellow on the headlights and the yellow on the emblem really bring each other out. So if you're into action figure photography like me, then this is a big win. I have a ton of other Batmobiles, as you can see from our other reviews here on the channel, but the truth is that a lot of them are in storage, so that would be really difficult to get to right now. So let's just bring out the ones that I have more on hand. I have a couple of different comparisons for you. First one that we're going to bring out is the Superpowers Batmobile. You can see that they're pretty much about the same length. The new one might be slightly wider in the front, though, as you can tell. But I really like how the motif of the bat head in the front is still there, so I think that's terrific. This is the Batman v Superman Batmobile. It's quite a bit shorter, and it's not quite as wide as this one, but this one's a lot cheaper and can hold many, many other types of figures. Here we have the second main Power Attack Batmobile from Mattel that was in the 6-inch scale, and we did a review on this, I don't know, a million years ago. It is extremely short compared to this one, and it's not nearly as wide as this one, but this is much cheaper and can hold a much larger variety of Batman figures. So we have come a very long way, but I don't know, I love the bat heads being on the front, and it almost looks like there's some real kinship between these two visually, almost like this was Batman's first Batmobile, and then he graduated to this over time. So I really like that, especially because this gives you that vibe of Batman's old coupe that he drove in the 50s. I know this one's not meant to be the same scale, but this was another Mattel Batmobile from when they shrunk the Power Attack line down to 3 3/4, which to me was a heartbreaking decision because I feel like the strength in that line was how they were kind of larger figures. But here it is. This is the Transforming Batmobile, and it's quite a bit smaller, but it's almost as wide, so kudos to them on that. But it is funny to see these two side by side, and they have that great bat head ram motif on the front. So I think that's a really cool visual similarity. This is probably the most essential comparison that we'll be doing. I'm going to show you the Batmobile that people had been using up until this point. That was kind of their go-to Batmobile for when they needed one that was in 6-inch scale, and that is the Batman Missions Batmobile. And it's still a great looking Batmobile, and I think that it does some terrific things still. I really like the design. I really like the canopy, especially how it looks. But I think that for me, personally, this screams Batmobile a lot more. I feel like that it has more of the muscle car look. I feel like it's got more of the bat head motif on the front, which is always a big favorite for me. I love how it actually has the fins, like on the Batman '89 car, and this one doesn't. This is more inspired by the Batman v Superman Batmobile with the flat fins. It has a much more versatile cockpit. You can see that when we open this up, it's just, you know, the one-seater. I like the seat. I like the way the seat looks really well in this, but you have to be a little more creative with how you put figures in it. But in here, you can kind of lay them down or do whatever you need to make it look right. So there's a lot more versatility. The other elephant in the room is all of these really irritating connection points for the gimmick that they had in there, which was fine for what it was. But the truth is that those were really irritating, and I saw people having to try to fill those in. There was even a big holder on the back. It almost looks like a drink holder that was supposed to hold the action feature. So it went a long way in disrupting that flow of the design. So here's from the side, the new one, and here is the side profile of the old one. I really like this profile much more. So in the end, do I recommend you go pick up this Batmobile at Costco? Of course I do. For only 20 bucks, you get the giant figure with it, you know, that you can give to some kid that would really appreciate it, or maybe you collect those. I think overall, this one's a no-brainer, guys. You get a Batmobile that is extremely nicely detailed from a company that really didn't have to put as much effort into it as they did, but you know what? They did anyway. So I gotta say, I think this is a home run for Spin Master. I think if you're an adult collector like me, you can have a lot of fun with the possibilities on this guy. Particularly when you're thinking about some of your other Batman lines that are currently Batmobile-less in the 6 and 7-inch scale. And of course, we all know over the years that even though the Batmobile is the most famous fictional car ever, it is unbelievable to think of just how few truly appropriately scaled 6 or 7-inch Batmobiles that we've gotten. And so we really have to look at every one as kind of an opportunity to see what it works with. In terms of design, it's great because this is really like a combination of the best elements of the Batman Animated Series Batmobile and then combining it with the Batman '89 Batmobile, which were probably the two most iconic versions for a lot of people in their 30s and 40s who grew up in that time. And just from the side, you see it has that kind of length and these kind of like exhaust ports of the Batman the Animated Series Batmobile. Of course, the canopy and the fins have that Batman '89 vibe along with the turbine, and the front has the comic book vibes, those early comic book vibes. So really what you've got is kind of an alchemy of really all of my favorite versions of the Batmobile over the years. I would say the only one that it doesn't homage as much is the 66 Batmobile, which I absolutely love, but it's very much its own kind of thing. So it's great to see it take all these wonderful design cues from the history of the Batmobile. So I definitely think that Spin Master accomplished their goals with this, and they actually went far above. Mattel had done a very similar, suspiciously similar, I think, kind of set up last year with a 12-inch version of the Batmobile that you could fit a 12-inch Batman figure into, just like what Spin Master has done. But this is truly the next level in detail. It is a car that is actually pretty well appropriate for any of your other 6 or 7-inch Batman figures. One thing that we probably should talk about is customizing opportunities. What would I do? Well, I'm no expert customizer or anything, and you know from the custom videos on this channel, if it's not simple, I don't really like to do it because it's too much of a risk. But I do have some ideas for this. I think the very first thing that I would do is probably get some paint on these exhaust pipes on the front. These right through here. I think that you're seeing an opportunity here to maybe put some silver on these, and I think they would look terrific with some silver highlighting. Another opportunity I think that we could see is maybe to take some of these bolts and rivets right here and give them a little bit of silver on there. You could probably take these hubcaps right here and add some silver detailing on those. If you're feeling really crazy, you might fill this in with a certain color. Not really sure what you could do there. Maybe a silver, who knows. These vents on the side, you could definitely apply some silver paint to and look really nice. You could weather the wheels a little bit, but where the wheel wells are so deep, the only place you could really see it is in the front. So you could add a little bit of kind of filthiness to those. I think the turbine in the back is one area that could use a lot of love, particularly adding some silver highlights and maybe even adding a bit of yellow there to suggest maybe that the turbine is on. I think that would be pretty cool. As for taillights, like I said earlier, if you want to go the Batman the Animated Series route, you could color this in red, so you could have the triangular taillights. But I'm not sure if I would go to that extreme. And a final tip I would give to any enterprising customizer out there would be to get yourself one of these. This is an extremely cheap little makeup powder brush, and these are the very best to use when it comes to doing a dry brush over any kind of custom project. So I'm probably going to take some silver paint and do a little bit of dry brushing over all of these intricate little details. Say for instance, right here, you can get a whole lot of these grooves to looking much, much, much better and have some weathering. I'm gonna brush this way and kind of make it look like the Batmobile has seen some action. I'm gonna do the same thing with that front, with that kind of ramming head right there. We're gonna give a little bit of, just a tiny bit of silver accents to bring out all of that great line work and sculpting on the Batmobile. If you want to see a video about me showing the finished product or showing how I do that, then please comment below and let me know. I'd be happy to make one for you. But of course, I want to make sure that there's actually enough demand for something like that. All right, guys, well, that does it for me. It's a $20 Batmobile. You get a giant free Batman figure that some kid in your life will really enjoy. You can't really go wrong with that, so get on down to Costco. Anyhow, guys, I hope that every one of you all have a great day, and as always, you guys be safe out there. God bless you all, and I'll see you on Fanboys Forever. We would absolutely love to have you as a new subscriber to our channel, and remember, once you join the Fanboys, you're part of the family. So we thank you so much for all those that have already subscribed, and we welcome any and all new subscribers. And we'd love to have your help, and we need your help. Take care.